Was and there still is a lonesome moon called the moon. The moon changes over the course of a month due to the amount of sunlight that the moon reflects from the sun. So over the course of a month, the amount of sunlight that the moon reflects changes with the positioning of the moon in conjunction with the Earth to the sun. This stop-motion video will explain the many phases the moon has over the course of a month.
The first of the moon's many phases is the new moon. The new moon is started from being in between the sun and the earth. What the new moon looks like during this phase is nothing because you cannot see it. And this phase counts as both the first and the last stage of the month because it is the fourth quarter of the moon's phases.
Second of the moon's phases is the waxing crescent. The waxing crescent is when the moon has just passed the new moon and is right before the first quarter of the moon's cycle of phases. The moon during the phase looks like a crescent that is barely starting to make shape of a half moon.
The third of the moon's phases is the first quarter. During the first quarter, the moon is just after the waxing crescent and just before the waxing gibbous. This phase is also referred to as half moon. This phase also marks the quarter part through the phases.
The fourth phase of the moon is called the waxing gibbous. The waxing gibbous occurs when the first quarter is over and the moon is between 50.01% and 99.9% of being a full moon. After the waxing gibbous, the full moon occurs.
The fifth of the moon's phases is called the full moon. Now the full moon is cool because it occurs when the Earth is exactly between the moon and the sun. The full moon also represents the halfway point of the moon's phases. This phase of the moon represents the second quarter of the moon's phases.
Sixth phase of the moon occurs after the full moon is called the waning gibbous. Now the waning gibbous is between 0.01% and 49.9% of a new moon. The waning gibbous is before the third quarter.
The seventh of the moon's stages occurs after the waning gibbous and before the waning crescent moons, and is called the third quarter, or commonly known as the half moon. This phase of the moon represents the third quarter of the moon's phases.
The eighth and final phase, besides the new moon of the moon's phases, occurs after the waning gibbous and before the new moon. The phase is called the waning crescent, and is similar to the waxing crescent except for one key feature. The waning crescent is on the opposite side of the moon's face and the waxing crescent is on.
That concludes our stop-motion informational project, and as you can see, the moon has very different stages over the course of a month.